Hello, everybody. It's Sophie and Marco Dish on the movies. Well, we are on the second movie of the vampire series we talked about and catching up to what we missed in October because of my sickness. Yesterday, I want to say that last time we talked about a 1970 Hammer movie production called Vampire Lovers. And when I looked at the cast list, I somehow missed the boyfriend Carl, played by John Finch. And I looked it up again today, and because I thought this can't be right, and I missed it. I was just an accident. And so by missing him, I felt like I gave him the short shrift and wanted to talk a little about him before we review our next movie. At age 18, John Finch served in a parachute regiment. Afterwards, he went on to act in or assist in 50 to 60 plays. By 1970, he not only acted in Vampire Lovers as Carl, the boyfriend to Laura in Emma, he also acted in another Hammer production called Horror of Frankenstein. When I said he looked familiar, I was right because he played the man wrongfully accused of being the necktie serial killer in Alfred Hitchcock's Frenzy in 1972. He went on to perform in many other movies and TV shows. Sadly, he passed away in 2012 at the age of 70. Okay,
Now I'm gonna say my part.
okay.
I still think that he was not good in the Vampire Lovers at all. He was so forgettable. That's why we forgot all about him. And number two, just so everybody knows, when if we ever review Frenzy, I'll tell you right now, it's my favorite Hitchcock movie.
That would be fine with me. I don't know about that movie. I didn't like it as much as Rear Window because that's my favorite Hitchcock movie.
Well,
But
it's also your favorite movie.
that's right, of all. But I like really, if you truthfully, I like all of Hitchcock movies except there was one at the very beginning and I can't think of it. That's the only one I
Stage
really.
fright.
Oh, it might have been
That one was
Strangers on
boring.
a Train. That might be it. I don't know. That there was one I didn't care for. Anyway, I like. But anyway, that it he made it. I didn't forget about him. I just when I looked down the cast list, he did play a big role in that. He helped the second girl in the movie. Uh, he's helped save her, and he always got the doctor to look in on the girls, and he may have been late, but he just didn't have much of a role as far as speaking. He mainly was he had a worried look on his face, and but he he was okay. But I guess when we were talking that if you want to talk about somebody who didn't even speak a word, the guy who was they even put him on the list as I said before, the Man in Black, which is really funny. He had a big part and without saying a word, which is really funny, just because he appeared all the time looking over at his daughter from afar on a horse, and he was all white in the face and he was all black with his clothes. So anyway, Marco, we'll continue this next vampire movie, which happens to be, I think, one of Marco's most favorite movies,
Hey,
and it is called
stop spoiling the review.
Fright Night. This is the first and best version, which premiered in 1985. It starred Roddy McDowall, Chris Sarandon, William Ragsdale, Jonathan Stark, Amanda Bierce, and Stephen Jeffries. Unlike the other vampire movie, this is more modern and is billed as a comedy horror movie. I doubt the Vampire Lovers could ever be mistaken for a comedy. Like most other vampire movies, though, the main vampire in this movie is a man. The movie begins as the camera pans out over a neighborhood and into what looks like an empty furnished bedroom where a TV is blaring and a show called Fright Night is on. Peter Vincent, played by Roddy McDowall, is the host of the show where he plays a vampire hunter. It turns out that teenagers Charlie Brewster, played by William Ragsdale, and Amy Peterson, played by Amanda Beers, are necking on the floor. Disappointed with Amy, you can watch the movie to see why, Charlie gets up and notices two men, Jerry Gandridge, played by Chris Sarandon, and Billy, his half vampire servant, who is played by Jonathan Stark, carrying a coffin into the basement of the unoccupied house next door to Charlie. Are they vampires who are moving in? The next day, you see Charlie and Amy at high school and their friend Evil Ed, played by Stephen Jeffries. He is the funniest character in the movie because of his sarcastic wit and great laugh. After school, Charlie pulls into his driveway, and as he gets out of the car, a beautiful, tall, blonde girl pulls up and asks if his address is the place she's looking for. Nope, he points to the house next door as the correct place to go. He runs into his own house to study for his trigonometry class, which he is failing. Later in the night, a blood-curdling scream jolts him out of his math work. The next day at school, Charlie is sitting by himself in the cafeteria, totally consumed by his trig homework, when Amy comes in and joins him. They begin to talk, but he is distracted by a news report that flashes on the screen and shows a photograph of a young, beautiful blonde girl who happens to be the one he talked to last night. He leaves his table to get a closer look, and that makes Amy mad. Ed walks over, Evil Ed, and says that she and another male victim who were murdered a few days ago both had their heads cut off. In the meantime, Amy smashes food into Charlie's face. After school, Charlie begins to spy on his new neighbors as much as he can. That night he falls asleep and wakes up to see a young, beautiful girl in the window of his neighbor's house.
Whoa. Now people don't have to watch the first 10 minutes of it. You gave it all away.
I just want to set it up so, and I haven't even mentioned Peter Vincent except
Don't spoil anything.
Well, I said that he was on the show, that TV show was blaring at the very beginning of the movie. Okay, Marco.
Alright. First off, I completely disagree that Evil Ed is the funniest character in the movie. I think that actually the funniest character is Jerry himself, because he makes all the funny the remarks. He's a vampire. Spoiler alert. I mean, it's not much of a secret. He knows all this stuff, so he makes all these remarks that just he's a lot more intelligent than them. He knows a lot more stuff than them. So I think he's a lot funnier. He doesn't really rely on a funny laugh like Evil Ed does. And I think that there's more of a sadness to Evil Ed that they tried to exploit. Contradictory to the remake where they make him a funny nerd who he's just there to make quips and everything. So, anyways.
That's weird.
You haven't even seen it. Stop it.
Well, I know. That's why I'm saying it's completely not him in this movie.
I know. Don't talk to Tom Holland about the remake. So, anyways, this movie is perfect. There's nothing else to say.
Well, that doesn't help. I mean, how does Peter Vincent play a role in this movie? Do you want to talk about that?
Peter
Because
Vincent.
all I did was talk about the show that was on TV. And
Peter
that's it.
Vincent plays Van Helsing, but realistically, in a modern world to where nobody believes that vampires exist, because they don't exist that we know of. So it's a lot more realistic. It's a lot more relatable, and he has a lot better of an arc to where he believes in them and he's trying to help somebody, and so that's great. So what did you think about it?
Well,
I just said the movie's perfect. There's nothing else to discuss. The movie's perfect.
well, you just made me think of this. Does he really believe in vampires? Do you think? I mean, before he has this, I don't know if you want me to say. Well, they ask for. Well, I can't. I don't want to say because I don't know if you want me to.
No.
But before if he gets involved with the kids in any way, do you think that this is just a role he plays on TV, or he really actually believes in vampires?
Well, I don't think he believes in them at all.
That's why I didn't think so either.
Which is what's cool.
What's interesting though, in the show that he does, he has this kit. It's a really elaborate case
A huge thing.
that has all these, stakes, and it has this special mirror. It's like, I mean, it's beautiful. It's like a compact thing that he pulls out. It's small. I mean, it fits in the palm of his hand, and then he has the little what is it? The stuff that's blessed by the water, the blessing water from the priest. There's some in there. I mean, it's a whole kit, and it's real big. It's not it's like a fishing kit or something. It's even bigger than that. It's like a toolbox, and it's leather. I think it looks like it's leather.
He's had like thousands of these movies, so he has to. It's kind of like, if you could equate it to anything, it's like the Bat utility belt from Batman.
Yeah, only it's more elaborate. It has a lot more stuff in it.
No, I would say Batman still has a lot more stuff, but it's like that, and he's very. He's not convincing on television. He's almost like being like a jokester, like he
Yeah.
should be, and it's really funny that Charlie thinks that he actually believes in them, and he's just so. I guess he was just so shocked by everything that happened that he's just, oh, that guy on TV, he must really believe in vampires. So, anything else about the movie, if it's good or not? Is it good? Do you think it's perfect?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know about that. Because I don't know what is a perfect movie.
It's perfect.
Well, that just doesn't. For other people, they might just say, "Well, I'm sorry. I don't. I'd rather make my own decision about whether I view it as perfect or not." Because maybe in somebody.
Too bad for them. They're missing out on a perfect movie.
Well, I guess Marco would probably tell you, because I can't. He saw the remake, which was done, what, a couple years ago?
2009.
Well, it's more than a couple years
I
ago.
think 2009, 10, 11, somewhere around there.
And he would tell you that this version, which I did say in the beginning, is 1,000 times better. I did not see the remake.
Well, the remake, they make it more of a comedy,
Excuse me.
and they make it kind of like a joke.
Yeah, and this is supposed to be comedic, but it is scary, too. And I mean, they're running from the vampire, and I mean, it's scary. It's not,
Yeah.
you know, and he's strong, and he just seems to be able to beat them or be right with them
If he
all the
had
time.
if he had an army, then he'd probably be able to take over the world.
Yeah, I know. So that's why, I mean, it may be, there may be some little comedic things like, I guess, when they're in the cafeteria, you remember I just said that, and he gets
That
up.
was a restaurant.
No, it was the cafeteria at school.
No,
Well, I thought it was.
that was a restaurant. They went after school.
Okay, well, I thought it was. Anyway, that doesn't matter. I guess I was confused. But when he gets up from the table and she gets all mad because she's trying to talk to him about their relationship, you know, and I mean, he just saw this blonde woman and they're showing her picture on TV and that she's been murdered. And he had heard the night before, he had heard a scream.
Well, Amy doesn't know that.
And well, yes, and Amy doesn't know that, but Amy's mad that he's not paying 1,000% attention to her. And she gets up, and some other boy has food on his plate, and she comes up and she takes whatever it is, and I'm not even sure what it was, and just takes
It was
it out.
a chili cheeseburger.
Okay, well, she takes it away from him, and then she smashes it in Charlie's face because he's not paying 100% attention to her. I guess that's supposed to be funny, but
It was really funny.
well, everybody around laughed, but that's what I said, that makes this vampire movie so much different
Actually,
than any other vampire movie I've
The-
ever seen.
I will say the remake is a lot funnier than the original, and
Oh.
that's not a good thing.
No, I don't think it should be funny.
It's almost like it's a separate thing because in the remake they have jokes about like the Kardashians
Oh, really?
and Twilight and just all this stuff. It's cultural and they even make jokes about the Wolfman and Dark Shadows and Buffy the Vampire Slayer and just too many like just playing it too
Well, it's like name dropping.
spoofy parody whatever. I don't know what they're doing, but in this movie, okay, I'll say this movie is a movie made by horror fans, and the remake is a movie made by people who have seen some horror movies, but are more fans of comedy.
Oh, I know. I could think of a comedy Dracula vampire movie, but I've never really seen it. It's that one with Leslie Nielsen.
Don't do that.
Well, anyway, that's even another different movie.
That wasn't a comedy. That was a parody. It's called Dracula Dead and Love in It, and it's not very good.
Well, I hadn't heard anything
So,
good about it.
Anyways, now for our ratings.
All right. Well,
What do you give it?
I thought it was a very complete movie. As usual, we don't hear a backstory. That's the only thing about the vampire. And what makes this movie different too, I mentioned it a little bit. Remember I said that there's this vampire has a servant half vampire working with him. And that's different. I've never seen that before. And
I have. It's called Renfield Dracula.
Oh well, yeah, but he's not. This guy isn't dumb. He's really scary. He can be really scary, and he's like. But he does it with both of them have a smile on their face.
Well, both of them have done it for a very long time.
Yeah. But we don't know of anything about either one, their past, except just what they say, which isn't much, or what's in the house when they show the house and what's on the walls. But I thought it was scary, and there's some little funny parts, not that many though. It's just they're kind of like sprinkled in there like pepper. So I'll give it a complete meal of fried chicken with corn and mashed potatoes and gravy, plus 2 chocolate chip cookies in honor of Evil Ed and Roddy McDowell, who I don't think ever gave a bad performance in his entire life.
Okay, well, since this is my favorite movie of all time, which I bet you guys could figure that out since I said it's perfect, I would give this movie also my favorite food of all time, and that is spaghetti with Safi's recipe, and I want to have butter on top with the noodles, and I also want to have tiny little Parmesan cheese, just a little bit, to make it more interesting when you get more towards the ends. And also a lot of spaghetti, a lot of it, and also Mr. Pibb, because that's my favorite type of soda. I think it's light years better than Dr. Pepper. Has a lot more flavor to it, and so like the movie, it's a mix, and it's also just a how would you say? It's a bounty of vampire, comedy, horror, suspense, thriller, everything you could want in one package. And also the drink, which would be Mr. Pibb, aka, I would say, Jerry's performance, Chris Sarandon, because I would say he's nobody ever talks about him when they talk about best movie villains. All they do is talk about, Hannibal Lecter,
Christopher
Psycho.
Lee.
No, they don't talk about him.
No?
They talk about let's see, Hal from 2001: A Space Odyssey, which I haven't seen,
I have.
and it's just the same old stuff over and over. And this guy, he's like light years better than anybody that people talk about. I mean, Heath Ledger's Joker, I mean, none of them are as good as Jerry Dandridge when he goes and says, "Welcome to Fright Night for real." I mean, that line is better than "Here's Johnny" in The Shining.
Marco.
It is.
I'd say it's one of
And The Shining is in my top 20 favorite movies, so I'm allowed to say that. Okay. Now, spoiler section.
Well, there's lots of spoilers. I just don't know how many we should say.
Well, the ending, I had a little bit of trouble. I mean, there's a lot. It's not that I don't like it. It's just that there's a lot that goes into killing Jerry.
Yeah, well, it's not easy. They almost, it's close.
Yeah.
And I think it's an accident.
It goes
it's
here,
almost
it goes
accidental.
there, it goes there, it goes there. I mean, it's really. I mean, it's epic, almost.
Yeah, it's a battle. It's
the
not
most
easy.
you could. It's the most you could do in a small space like a house like that, without just destroying the whole house, like they do in those crappy ghost movies that come out nowadays.
No, they don't destroy the whole house. Basically,
They destroy that window, which he said in an interview that you have to do this where you have these items like the window, and then they pay off at the end of the movie. Like, why do we show something like that much? Well, okay, it's gonna get broken. Something sun's gonna come through it. That's really cool, and also it's a throwback to Psycho, the way the window's like a stained painted, like in Psycho, he has that stained glass window, remember?
Yeah, kind of vaguely. Well, I do want to say they enlist Peter Vincent, but he doesn't. He does figure out that they are real. Well, that Jerry really is a vampire because he actually brings that kit that he uses on TV because he's trying to appease the kids, and the girlfriend Amy is paying him from her college fund because he right before.
I bet her parents are happy with that.
Oh, I know. Right before they go to see him, he gets fired from his job because
And gets evicted.
and he's going to be evicted. And so I mean he's in dire straits. And he doesn't. He thinks they're stupid. He just does. He's just all upset. He's in a bad way. And when Charlie goes to see him, he goes by himself first. He doesn't have any success. But then what happens is Amy and Evil go to see him, and she says she'll give him some of the money. And so he goes there, and he brings a special kit that he uses on TV. It's a prop, but it does have all these things in it that you would use to, you know, fight a vampire. And his little mirror, they're done, and he just thinks, he's done this to appease the kids, check the guy out. And then he thinks, well, I'll get my little mirror out. Remember the little mirror I mentioned, the little compact mirror that he holds in his hand? He can't even see it. And he sees that Jerry doesn't have a reflection. And so he knows for sure that he really is a vampire. And he runs away. I mean, they go out of the house, but then he won't help them at first. So he doesn't show up until near the end, like he's saving the day. And another thing I wanted to mention, in the house, there's a painting on the wall. Remember I said we really don't have any backstory about either one of these villains, whatever, and but there is a painting on the wall, and it's of a woman. It's an oil painting. It's of a woman who looks exactly like Amy, and Amy's a high schooler, but this is some woman in Jerry's past. So of course he's interested in Amy, and he goes after her.
It would have been really interesting if there was a twist and it turned out that she was a vampire all along.
Oh yeah.
And that his love interest didn't actually die, and that would have been really weird because she's with a high school kid and everything.
Yeah.
They didn't do that, but I'm just saying if that would have happened, I mean, that's what I would have done if they made a remake. I would have done that.
They did make a remake. What did they do about that?
They basically did the same thing. Well, there's too much. I mean,
well, I think
there's too much stuff to give away.
Yeah, there's so much to give away, but I just wanted to say, Rob and Mark will get mad at me, but a lot has been going on about men going after young girls in the news, and this, it bothered me. Even before we heard about any of this stuff in the news, that he is an older guy. He's probably in his 30s or something when they made the movie, and she is a young girl.
So what?
And I didn't like that. But what?
It's not like he's in his 60s.
No, but what validates? Yeah, but that I don't want to go into what's going on in the news because we're not going to talk about the news because there's just too much. Yeah. Anyway, what it kind of validates it is that she looks exactly like somebody he knew in his past. I mean, exactly like her. It might have been her twin. So that kind of gave it more validation because back then, older men did date younger women back
Okay,
a long time ago. So I
there
mean,
was
this would be who knows,
also
15th century, 16th century. We don't know. That's why we don't
there's
have a whole
also
story.
knight armor, like actual shining, gray knight armor. So that leaves me to think that